We are very proud and excited to present here to discuss medical cannabis in Germany. He's the partner at Denton's, and he's the head of the European Cannabis Group. Please welcome Peter Humberg.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, after lunch on a Friday the 13th, it's always difficult, you may say. It is not. It can be a lucky day, or it can be a difficult day. For me, it's a lucky day because I have the pleasure to speak for such a wonderful audience here about the medical cannabis developments in Germany. And coming back to difficult, I don't know whether you have listened recently to German politicians, because they are using the word difficult very often, also in the connection with cannabis. And if you look into what they really mean, what difficult means, it looks like it's a synonym for either unacceptable, out of question, or outrageously stupid. So if ever a politician is used difficult, you have to really look what he is meaning. And having said that, I would like to make a couple of remarks before I start my presentation about our discussion which we had earlier today. The question was from one of the member of the audience. I was going to say use the other microphone, maybe. You can't hear me? This one might be easier for us to hear you. This one's a little. Is a little what? Yeah, try that. Okay. Wow, good. Wonderful. You hear me better? Great. I think somebody asked of you, should Slovenia copy the German model? The answer is that would be difficult. Because they are, you have to differentiate between the recreational part, of course, and the medical part. The recreational part, and thank you very much, my dear friend, that you left the medical part for me this afternoon. The recreational part, which you so nicely outlined today, is a step forward, but not what actually everybody wanted. And I will come back to that in a minute. But with respect to the medical part, it is, from my point of view, a good model to look at. And in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you a little bit why it is a good model to look at, even for Slovenia. It has a number of advantages, and I would say it is really a success story since we started with the legalization of medical cannabis in Germany back in 2016. The other part, the recreational, you know, as I said, it's difficult. You may not copy it in any way. Besides the fact, me as a lawyer, I would never advise on copying something, not even the law. It would be like I would actually recommend copying the German Employees Invention Act, which is the most elaborated and most difficult act regarding this topic to a Japanese employer. So looking at it, having a look at the advantages, and of course then use them, and Slovenia is now on the move into the medical cannabis market, into the medical cannabis field, it may be worthwhile to consider what Germany has done. So here's the outline what I would like to discuss with you this afternoon. First of all, a very brief review. How did it all happen? Why is actually Germany so now in Europe in the forefront of the medical cannabis market? Then, of course, we have a look what has actually happened since 2016, what has recently happened since the legalization of recreational or partial legalization of recreational cannabis in Germany. And then, of course, we look into the potential problems which this all may or may not cause in the future. Also take into consideration that we have elections next year, and the government may change. You may have looked at what has happened in Germany politically just recently. So there is a likelihood that the current coalition will not be represented in the government end of next year. So having said that, let's have a look into the development. Before the year 2016, there was the possibility for medical patients to apply for a special permission to use cannabis as a medicine for the treatment of their diseases. One of those patients actually started to, or wanted to grow at home, the home grow model, and he got a cease and desist order from the BfArM, which is the federal medical authority, very much like the FDA in the US. And he went to court. And in June 2016, the matter was taken up by the highest, in April of 2016, by the highest administrative court in Germany, and they allowed him to cultivate cannabis for his treatment at home, which at that point in time, was a nightmare for the legislator. And they came up with the respective rules and regulations for narcotics, or the use of a narcotic, meaning cannabis, as a medicine in June 2016. In March 2017, it all became legal. And since then, and that's now, I think, the important point, since then, cannabis can be prescribed as a medicine. And why has that been so outstandingly important? Number one, it has been defined as an extemporaneous mixture. We were talking this morning about finished products and the development of finished products. And finished products, as you know, need, of course, a marketing authorization. And for marketing authorization, you need costly clinical trials. With the consequence that if the trial fails, you have lost a significant amount of money and, of course, also reputation for that specific product. And it can only be done for a certain indication. So the importance of the definition of cannabis as an extemporaneous mixture cannot be underestimated, because as an extemporaneous mixture, and I'll come back to that in a minute, you do not need any kind of clinical trials. The physician can prescribe cannabis for the treatment of his disease. The patient gets a prescription, goes to the pharmacy. The pharmacist is preparing the product according to the prescription and is handing it over. So no need for clinical trials, no need for marketing authorization, as cannabis in Germany is defined as an extemporaneous mixture. First important point. Secondly, there is no limitation, no official limitation at least, on the therapies. Which indications? We have that in the UK, as you know. We have a very limited indication for which cannabis can be prescribed. That's not the case in Germany. In Germany, each and every physician can actually decide whether cannabis could be used as a treatment for the disease of that specific patient. And he can select today out of 400 different flower products which are on the market in order to treat the patient. Second, very important point. And last but not least, this product, the extemporaneous mixture product, does not need to go through a price-finding process with regard to the reimbursement for patients. You know, we have a very detailed health insurance system in Germany. So everybody has a health insurance, and these products, these treatments with cannabis, are going to be reimbursed by the health insurance companies upon a specific application by the patients together with the physicians to be reimbursed. In the years 2017 and following, around 60% of these applications have been granted, and the health insurance companies have reimbursed the patients for their treatment. Today, we will look at that in a minute, everything has changed on that. But that were the important points which actually led to an increase of patients, an increase of prescriptions since 2017. In April 2024, as I just mentioned, and Kai has outlined this very nicely today, the CanG, the new Cannabis Act, came into force, and with that, the Medical Cannabis Act, which contains also, of course, new provisions on the medical cannabis prescriptions. And we will look at that in a minute. So what are the significant changes since 2017? Well, there are new prescription requirements. What has Germany done with the partial legalization for the recreational market? And we mentioned that this morning, whether Slovenia should go into the in this direction as well. And I think you have mentioned it here, Jasper, this morning in your presentation. Germany has taken cannabis out of the German Narcotics Act. Cannabis is not longer a narcotic. It has been transferred into the cannabis law, in the new cannabis law. Doesn't mean that you can do everything with cannabis right now, because the same limitations which we had before, with some exceptions, which we have seen on the recreational side this morning, apply to cannabis as well. So you cannot actually freely trade it, you cannot actually sell it, you can grow it at home, as we have heard this morning. And of course, these cultivation associations are going to be established, and of course, hopefully, the pilot projects, scientifically controlled pilot projects, will be established. But what is important is that this decision has an influence on the medical market. Why? Because now physicians are not going to prescribe a narcotic which is significantly more difficult than prescribing just a regular RX product. So that has changed since the 1st of April this year, so very brand new, that every physician can actually now prescribe cannabis as a regular RX product. It's not longer a narcotic. So this eliminates, of course, a number of bureaucratic requirements, not only for the physicians who actually had to register with the B-Farm to prescribe, to be allowed to prescribe cannabis, but also for the pharmacies. Of course, they have to safeguard the cannabis. It's still a product which has certain requirements, but it is not longer a narcotic. The next big issue, and that has an impact on the future businesses, which we will see as well, is that the requirement for cultivation medical cannabis in Germany has been significantly changed. You may know that after 2017, the BfArM, the Federal Health Agency or Medical Agency, has tendered out to the public the possibility to cultivate medical cannabis in Germany. And 3 companies actually finally succeeded in that long winding process, who actually were allowed to cultivate 10.4 metric tons in 4 years, which means 2.6 tons, metric tons per year, plus a additional threshold of 10%, which is, compared to the actual consumption, we will see that in a minute, is a fraction of what is actually needed in the medical market. This has been changed, which means every producer who thinks he is in a position, he can actually cultivate cannabis, can apply now to the Cannabis Agency to get a license for the cultivation of medical cannabis, which of course we all know is not easy because of the quality requirements, at least the security requirements. They will not be loosened. And all those 3 who actually won the tender back in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, all those 3 have already applied to increase the quantity for the cultivation of cannabis in Germany for the medical market, and have all been granted, as of today, respective permissions to increase significantly the production, the cultivation of their medical cannabis products, which will have a significant impact on the market as well, in particular for those exporters from Canada, the Netherlands, and other countries. And I come back to that at the end of my presentation. So all this has a significant impact on the medical market, as you see. So it's not only since April 1st we have a partial recreational market. All the decisions made there had an impact on the medical market as well, to its advantages. I have now 3 charts which I would like to show you. The first one is the comparison between the estimated demand versus the actual import of medical cannabis. Unfortunately, the actual figures for 2022 and 2023 are not yet available. I have other data which are a little bit more actual than these ones, but what you can see is actually that the respective demand which the so-called Bundesopiumstelle, which is actually a department of the German BfArM, has actually estimated, because this has to be, and that's important also for Slovenia, you have to actually indicate, to apply to the INCB, the International Narcotic Control Board, for getting permission to import cannabis for medical purposes. You cannot just order it. So the government, in this case, through its respective ministry or through the respective agency, has to apply for the importation of cannabis into the respective local market and gets it usually granted. So it's not a big hurdle, but it's a formal process which each country who's going to import medical cannabis has to follow. And you can see here that originally the estimation was significantly higher than the actual imports. But in 2021 it already leveled out, and it will probably be leveled out but significantly increased for the next years. So if you look into that here, now I have some more actual figures, which are the imports of cannabis by quarter from the year 2017 to 2024. You see a significant increase over the years in kilograms, and in 2024, in particular in the second quarter, we have significant increase. The figures estimated for the third and fourth quarter 2024 are even significantly higher. Why? I will show you in a minute what kind of impact the recreational changes had on the medical market. And last but not least, these are the number of prescriptions within the framework of statutory health insurances. These are only those patients' prescriptions which you are registered with their health insurance who get reimbursed. Today, and you will see that in a minute, we have a much more self-payer market, which has been increased over the last couple of months. And as such, that is a figure which is only looking into those patients who have actually been reimbursed by their health insurance companies. And you see that there is a significant increase. It's prescriptions, not patients, but today I think we are looking into what I would say around 100,000 patients currently under treatment with medical cannabis in Germany, which to a certain extent is, for all those who are in the business, a little bit disappointing because everybody thought the market would be higher, but nevertheless, it is by far the largest markets in Europe with over, well, I would say 100,000 patients. If you look into the other markets, it's 29,000 patients for Italy, Netherlands around 9,000 patients, and Poland 5,200. That is, of course, also due to the fact that their prescription policy is different. So the sales in the medical market in Germany are actually to be expected around $500 million in 2024, which is, I would say, already significant, increasing by estimated approximately 4% per year. I believe it will be probably higher. That market is going to hit, I would say, in 2029, so 5 years from now, in my expectations, the €1 billion mark. This is very conservatively calculated. So coming back to the latest developments, and we are now in September 2024, so such developments just took place between 1st of April and now, the medical cannabis market has significantly increased. Of course, through the facts which I mentioned before, the change in the prescription requirements, and what has happened actually is that shortly after the legalization of recreational cannabis, there were IT platforms created. IT platforms which are bringing together physicians, patients, and pharmacies. So today, actually, a patient can actually book an appointment with a physician via this platform. He can use telemedicine for his consultation and is getting then an electronic prescription either directly to the pharmacy or back to him, and then can actually get his cannabis even without having a physical appointment with a physician delivered to his doorstep. And if you look into the various different platforms there, and we are advising 5 of them, there are, of course, some means which may be at least questionable. For example, some of them are using physicians not in Germany, but outside of Germany within the European Union, for example, in Croatia, where the requirements for a telemedicinal consultation are significantly loosened in comparison to Germany. So he doesn't even have to see the patient. He just files in a questionnaire with all his data and is getting his prescription, or even not, but most of them are getting the prescription, delivered to him. He can then actually go to the online pharmacy, file his prescription, and gets it back to deliver to his doorstep. I have here citations of 3 cannabis companies. These are importers or distributors, which is Cantourage, Cansativa, and Canamedical. And you see that they have a significant increase in business. So all the facts and figures which you saw on the charts will be significantly higher in the 3rd and 4th quarter 2024. Alone, Canamedical actually forecasts a 7 to 10-fold increase in sales. So you can say, well, are they all patients, or do we see kind of a shift from the recreational market into the medical market? Probably yes. But on the other hand, to make it easier for patients to get a prescription is a good thing. There's no doubt about that. And I've been in the pharmaceutical industry for many years, and I'm definitely one of those who supports the use of medical cannabis as an alternative medicine for various diseases, for various indications. And I think we are definitely going into the right direction. Whether the prescription policy, which is so liberal currently in Germany for the prescribing cannabis, will stay in place for the next years, I can't tell you, because the authorities are already very much looking into these kind of IT platforms and distributions of cannabis. However, this is all legal, because we have a respective arrangement between the European member states that, of course, a physician in a different member state can actually prescribe cannabis for a patient who is residing in another state. Whether this has been foreseen here or not is a different question. So if you look into what has happened further, what has happened since then, is that 80% of the current cannabis prescriptions are self-payers. The ratio was totally different. It was 60 to 40 shortly after the legalization of medicinal cannabis. But now it's really 80% are self-payers, which is surprising or not surprising, very much depending how you see that. What is also important is that the so-called GBA, which is the Federal Joint Committee, which is the highest self-governing body within the German healthcare system, will loosen the requirements of applying to the health insurances before the treatment with cannabis will start. So, which is, by the way, kind of strange, because there is, from my point of view, no other RX product where a patient has actually to file an application to his health insurances to get reimbursement first before the treatment starts. So there will be now a group of physicians, probably those specialized groups like physicians who are specialized in pain treatment, where this actually requirement will be waived. So last but not least, despite the partial legalization, there are currently, as we said this morning, no ways to buy recreational cannabis freely in Germany, which, from my point of view, would be the ultimate solution in order to fulfill the arguments for legalization, for the legalization of cannabis, which is A, of course, protecting the use, B, to deliver better products to the recreational users, and C, to attack the black market. However, this is still on hold, as we all know, because of the legal requirements or the legal hurdles which the European Commission has actually established within the European Union. And of course, Germany didn't want to go to the European Court of Justice. If you may remember, the German government had just big losses before the European Court of Justice. The first one was with regard to that car fees or the respective payment for using the German Autobahn also for private cars. And the second one was with regard to the storage of personal data for a longer period of time. So they didn't want to risk, again, losing before the European Court of Justice, and as such actually went back to that partial recreational system which we saw this morning. However, looking into what is going to happen in the future, these two questions, I think, are imminent. The first one is, will legalization lead to patients buying cannabis for recreational purposes instead of medical cannabis, or will both industry be able to fully coexist? Well, we saw that in Canada after this, I would say, full legalization, where everybody can actually buy, every adult can buy cannabis in a licensed shop. The medical market went not significantly, but went down. Here in Germany, through that system which we have implemented for partial legalization of recreational cannabis in 1st of April, the opposite was the case. So, well, obtaining recreational cannabis through fewer bureaucratic hurdles, of course, has its benefits. However, whether this is going to be in the future is difficult to say. The approach which we heard this morning of various European countries to try to change that policy for recreational cannabis within the European Union is the right step of doing that. Last but not least, will there be any changes with regard to imports of medical cannabis? Will they decrease drastically? The answer to that is yes, I think so. More and more, and of course all those cultivators which are already present in Germany, more and more cultivators will be coming up to cultivate medical cannabis in Germany, with the consequence that the more you domestically produce, the less you are allowed to import. Though the INCB is of course monitoring not only the imports of a country, but also what the country actually self-cultivates. And I can tell you that these three cultivators already are looking into significantly broadening their portfolio with other plants, with other seeds which they are going to import in order to really be competitive on that market. With the consequence that if they come to the market, which will be in due course, then of course the import quota for medical cannabis will be reduced, which has a significant impact, of course, on the respective exporters from, of course, Canada, the Netherlands, and others. Having said that, the situation with regard to medical cannabis, from my point of view, is a model which I think to a certain extent cannot be copied, but can be implemented by others. It is a success story with respect to the changes in the recreational market. I would say they have been difficult. Thank you very much.
All right, let's hear it for Peter Homburg.